You ever walk into a room and instantly realize you don't belong there, even when it's your name on the lease? Yeah, that was me. Beyond the door, I opened a wave of pink and blue balloons, floated up like pastel lies. Music played. Guests laughed. A massive banner read, "Welcome, baby Julian." That's when I knew. My housewarming party had been hijacked. The villa I bought with my own damn money. The one I dreamed of for years. Hijacked by none other than my mother. For her new favorite person, my 25-year-old half-sister Tiffany, I stood frozen at the entrance, and there she was. Mom, aka Donna the Queen of I Raised Two Daughters, even though one of them barely counted. She flashed that too-wide grin and waved like everything was fine. Oh my God. "Selena, you made it." She beamed, holding a tray of pink lemonade, like she hadn't just detonated my plans. Right behind her stood Gerald, my stepfather, her second husband. Wearing his favorite smug expression, and lounging like she owned the place, Tiffany, in a jade green maternity dress, 8 months pregnant, caressing her stomach like it was royalty. The crowd cheered when she laughed. They didn't notice the woman who actually paid for the place standing at the door like an extra. I walked in slowly. My heels clicked against the hardwood I picked out myself. "Congrats, Tiffany," I said, handing her the small, neutral-toned gift I'd picked up at the last second, once I figured out what this had become. "Hope the baby likes psychology textbooks." She chuckled nervously. "Thanks, Selena." Yeah, she knew. She knew this was supposed to be my housewarming, but of course it wasn't really about me. Not to them. It never was. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" Mom tapped a glass with a spoon. The room quieted. "We're so thrilled today to celebrate my baby girl and her wonderful boyfriend Marcus as they prepare to welcome baby Julian." The guests clapped. I sipped the champagne someone shoved in my hand. My fingers shook. Mom's voice floated on, but I barely heard her. I was somewhere else 18 years in the past, watching everything I loved get replaced. "My name is Selena Torres. I'm 33. I'm the executive director of Data Flow Analytics. I built the Aurora forecasting model that revolutionized predictive finance in Southeast Asia. But none of that matters in this room. Here I'm just the other daughter. It started 3 weeks ago. I just wrapped a brutal round of international calls. Our new clients in Singapore wanted their integration rolled out yesterday. I was buried in logistics and risk assessments when my assistant popped into the office. Selena, the decorators, confirmed the villa is ready for the party this weekend. And, your mom sent something too." I didn't like the way she said that. Something I raised an eyebrow. She handed me her tablet. An email from Mom. Subject line: "Important change to Saturday's plans." There was an attachment. I opened it. The photo showed my villa's living room streamers, baby rattles, confetti spelling. It's a boy all over the place. The same living room I'd picked the paint color for. The one I poured $4,500 into prepping for my own milestone. I blinked. My brain short-circuited. Then I dialed her number. She picked up on the second ring chipper as ever. "Selena, I was just about to call you. What is this?" "Mom," my voice was flat, controlled. The same tone I used in boardrooms. "Oh, honey," I meant to explain. "We thought it'd be such a wonderful idea to combine both celebrations. It's efficient, don't you think?" "Efficient." I clenched my jaw. "I gave you money for my housewarming. And it still is," she said brightly. "You're hosting it. It's just that, Tiffany's baby is due soon and she's been so stressed. This helps everyone." "Right, everyone but me." Let me rewind for a second. My dad died when I was 10. Cancer. Quick, cruel, and devastating. For 2 years, it was just Mom and me. Then Gerald showed up. Mr. Charisma. And with him came Tiffany. Tiffany born into the upgraded version of the family. After that, I was furniture. Mom stopped attending my recitals, My birthday cake one year was literally leftover pie from Gerald's cousin's cookout. And then came the big one. At 16, I got accepted into a prestigious science camp. I was over the moon. I needed 800 to secure my spot. Sorry, sweetie, Mom had said. We just enrolled Tiffany in ballet and the costumes are so expensive. I mowed lawns, I walked dogs, I made it happen. But something inside me cracked that summer. I learned then what would become my life motto. Never ask people to value you. Show them why they should have. Back to present day. Back to the pastel invasion of my living room. I looked around at the guests. Some of them were from my mom's country club circle. None were my colleagues or friends. Because guess what? They never even sent my invites. I took a sip of champagne and steadied my voice. You could have told me. I didn't want to ruin the surprise, she chirped. And you've been so busy, sweetheart. This way, everything's taken care of. Except it wasn't. I wasn't. I hung up the call after 2 minutes. Not a word of anger. Not a scream. But I made a call after that. To my lawyer. Then another. To a caterer. A new one. And then I pulled up the guest list on the shared doc and quietly removed a few names. You see if I've learned anything. Being the forgotten daughter. It's this. The best revenge isn't loud. It's calculated. It's polite. It wears heels and signs checks. And that Saturday, that was going to be my moment. They had no idea what was coming. By the time I pulled into the driveway that Saturday, I wasn't nervous. I was focused. The lawn looked immaculate. I'd arranged a last-minute landscaping touch-up because if they were going to celebrate anything in my home, it better look perfect for me. A line of cars stretched down the gravel path, most of them unfamiliar. The people inside had no idea the ground beneath them was about to shift. I stepped out in a black sleeveless jumpsuit, subtle gold jewelry, and my favorite heels. My reflection in the side mirror said calm, confident, calculated. I adjusted the delicate chain around my neck, my dad's initials engraved on the pendant, and walked up to my own front door like a guest. Again. Inside, nothing had changed from the photos, pastel banners, gender reveal props, diaper cake on the table. There was even a slideshow playing on the TV with baby ultrasound photos, Tiffany's journey to motherhood soundtracked with soft piano music. Not a single mention of the house. The home. My milestone. I stepped in and instantly heads turned. My mother swept over with her signature performative warmth. Selena. There she is. Doesn't she look amazing, everyone? A chorus of polite affirmations followed, mostly from people who didn't know me beyond Donna's filtered stories. I smiled. Hey, Mom. Lovely turnout. Oh, it's just been wonderful. Tiffany's glowing, and everyone's having a blast. You should grab some of those deviled eggs, they're heavenly. I nodded, moving through the crowd like an observer. This was a party with me, not for me. But that was fine. I had no plans to steal the spotlight. I planned to reclaim it. In the corner, I saw my grandparents. God, I'd almost cried when they RSVP'd. They looked a little out of place. My grandpa Warren held a cup of punch like it might explode. Grandma Rosa wore a deep green shawl and smiled softly when she saw me. I made a beeline toward them. Sweetheart, she said, pulling me into a hug. You look stunning. I'm so glad you came, I whispered back. Warren gave me a firm nod. You okay? I will be. I let that hang in the air. My grandparents were the only real lifeline I had left from my dad's side. They never gave me fake smiles or hollow words. They showed up. They always had. We sat near the fireplace, tucked away from the center of attention, until Tiffany's boyfriend stepped up with a microphone. Hi, everyone. Marcus beamed. Thanks so much for coming today. It means the world to us. We're so lucky to be surrounded by so much love. And we especially want to thank Donna and Gerald for organizing this beautiful shower. Applause. Cheers. Toasts raised. And one more person. Marcus continued. We have to thank Selena for letting us host this here. "Your home is incredible." Everyone clapped again. That was it. One line. "Or go bonny shores." A name check. That was my whole housewarming tribute. But I raised my glass anyway, looked directly at the crowd, then held my smile as I walked away. 10 minutes later, I asked my mother to step into the kitchen. She followed, sensing nothing. That was the thing with Donna. She never saw the storm until it was already overhead. "What's up, sweetie?" she said, wiping her hands on a napkin. "Are you enjoying yourself?" "I'm fine. Just needed to check something," I said, casually pulling my phone out. "Quick question. Did you sign the catering contract under your name?" She blinked. I think Gerald did." "Why?" "Because the invoice was rerouted. I switched vendors. Didn't like the previous quote." I watched her mouth open and close. "Wait. You changed the caterer?" "Yeah." "This food. It's not from your friend Nancy's company. It's from mine." I thought. "You thought you'd spend my money your way." So I took back control. Her face stiffened. "Selena, I didn't mean." "It's fine. Really. I let you have today. Now I'm just making sure the cleanup starts when the party ends. Because we have guests arriving at 6 for my celebration." She laughed nervously. "I invited them this morning. My team from the firm. Some friends from college. The real guest list. They'll be here after this crowd clears out." Her mouth fell open. She didn't know what to say. I didn't wait for her to figure it out. I turned, walked back into the living room, and took the mic from Marcus with a polite smile. "Mind if I say something real quick?" The room quieted. My mother froze. Tiffany shifted awkwardly in her chair. I cleared my throat and began, voice even. "Hi everyone. I'm Selena Torres, and I want to thank you all for coming today. It's been really enlightening." A few people laughed, unsure if it was a joke. "I'm thrilled for my sister. Motherhood is beautiful. And so is being surrounded by people who show up when it counts." I paused. This house, this villa, was a dream I built after years of hard work. Long nights, endless deadlines. I bought it 2 months ago, and today was meant to be the first day I welcomed people into it. Murmurs. But plans changed. Without my knowledge, this space was repurposed. Which happens when people assume things about your generosity. Donna looked like she might faint. But I don't hold grudges. I just make things clear. I gestured to the decorations. This wasn't the party I planned, but it gave me the perfect opportunity to make an announcement. I turned toward my grandparents. "Rosa, Warren, thank you for always believing in me. For never making me earn love I was already born deserving of." Their eyes welled up. "I'm proud to say I've just accepted a promotion. I'm now the youngest executive director in the history of data flow analytics. And next week, my name will appear in Forbes for an op-ed on women in predictive finance." Women in gasps. My mother's jaw dropped. This villa, it's not just a home. It's a symbol of everything I achieved without shortcuts, without handouts, without favoritism. And then I ended it like this. So while we're here celebrating new beginnings, let me raise a glass to Tiffany and Marcus. May your journey be filled with joy. And to everyone else, come back at 6. If you'd like to celebrate the woman who made all of this possible." Officially. Silence. Then applause. Scattered at first. Then louder. Tiffany looked like she might cry. Gerald was beet red. Donna couldn't even blink. And just like that, the narrative shifted. From guest to owner. From ignored to irreplaceable. By the time I stepped out of the kitchen, half the room had scattered. A few guests were pretending to check their phones. Some were helping themselves to more food just to avoid eye contact. The vibe had shifted. I could feel it in the air. Tiffany was still on the couch, eyes glassy, her hands resting stiffly on her stomach. Marcus stood beside her, silent. Donna, my mother, was nowhere to be seen. Not surprised. I didn't go looking for her. Instead, I made my way to the back patio with a fresh drink and took a breath. The lake shimmered in the distance, still and beautiful. If I focused just right, I could drown out the chaos and hear the wind weaving through the trees. Selena. I turned. It was Marcus. He looked awkward, but his voice was calm. I just wanted to say, that was a hell of a speech. I raised an eyebrow. Not sure if that's a compliment or critique. It's both, he said, folding his arms. I didn't know about any of it. Tiffany didn't tell me this was your housewarming. She said the place belonged to her mom. Of course she did. Right, I said slowly. Did she also tell you I paid for the catering? The decorations, the staff, and the house itself? He shook his head. No. I found out when you started talking. And honestly, I don't know what to say. I think I just realized how much I don't know. I studied him for a beat. Marcus wasn't hostile, just confused, maybe even ashamed. That's fair, I said, softening slightly. It's not your job to know everything. But I'm done letting people assume the wrong version of me because it's easier for them. He nodded, then hesitated. Would it be crazy if I asked if I should still come back at 6? That made me pause. I looked him in the eye. If you come back, it won't be as Tiffany's boyfriend. It'll be as yourself. That's the only condition. He gave a slow nod. Got it. Then he left. And for a few quiet minutes, I stood there and let the breeze wash over me. Back inside, the party was winding down. Some guests had left early. Others offered half-hearted goodbyes or awkward smiles. My grandparents stayed until the very end, helping tidy up, refusing to let me do it alone. Donna reappeared after most of the guests were gone, standing near the staircase like a ghost, unsure whether she belonged. Selena, she said finally, her voice tight. I didn't turn around. You embarrassed me, she continued, still not turning. You made a scene, and now your sister is crying upstairs. I placed the last champagne glass into the dishwasher, shut the door, and only then did I look at her. I didn't embarrass you, Mom. I told the truth. She stepped closer. There were guests, friends of mine, and not one of mine. Because you didn't send out my invites. She flinched at that. Good. You think you're the victim here, she snapped. I tilted my head. Do you? Her mouth opened, but no sound came, so I gave her one more. You took my money, my milestone, my moment, and you used it for someone else again. And you never thought I'd say anything. She crossed her arms, defensive. Tiffany's pregnant. She's vulnerable. So was I. For 20 years, that shut her up. I'm not here to argue, I added. I'm just here to draw a line, and I'm done erasing myself for you. She tried to recover. You're being dramatic. There it was. The classic Donna deflection. The gaslight special. But I didn't bite. I'm being deliberate. Then I walked right past her. At exactly 6, the new guests began to arrive. These weren't people who showed up out of obligation. They weren't here for pastel balloons or forced family photos. They were my people. Friends who'd sat with me through late-night coding marathons. Co-workers who knew the hours I'd put into Aurora. Mentors who'd watched me climb from a junior analyst to the top floor. Colleagues from MIT. My old roommate from DC. They brought wine. Real smiles. And no one asked me about Tiffany. Donna stayed upstairs the entire time. Gerald had already left after muttering something about disrespecting his household. I let him go without a word. I didn't have to correct him. It's not his household. Not anymore. The night turned out beautiful. We lit the fire pit on the back deck. Music played softly from the speakers I'd installed last month. My godson brought marshmallows. My best friend Zaria gave a toast that had everyone laughing and tearing up at the same time. I remember when Selena lived in a shoebox apartment, she said. She used to eat cereal with a fork because she couldn't afford to run the dishwasher. And now look at her, queen of this lakeside palace executive, and still the same sarcastic, stubborn, ride-or-die woman I met a decade ago. Everyone clapped. I laughed so hard I almost spilled my wine. And in that moment, I felt it. the weight fall away. The years I spent tiptoeing, apologizing for taking up space, holding back my pride because I thought it made me selfish, gone. Around midnight, when the last of the guests left and silence finally wrapped around the house, I wandered to the living room and sat on the couch, the one Tiffany had claimed hours earlier. I stared out at the water. No music, no distractions, just the sound of belonging, not borrowed, earned. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my grandmother. Tonight reminded me so much of your dad. You carry his fire, Selena. He'd be so proud. I stared at that message for a long time. I'm finally starting to believe it. The morning after the party, I woke up to sunlight pouring through the sheer curtains in the master bedroom. My bedroom. There was no trace of balloons, no scent of cake, no echo of forced cheer. Just quiet, not the suffocating kind I used to feel in my childhood home, where silence meant walking on eggshells. This was peace, real earned quiet. My phone buzzed beside me on the nightstand. Notifications lit up the screen texts from coworkers, photos from last night, a short video someone took during Zaria's toast that was already racking up views on LinkedIn. The caption read, "Strong, sharp, Selena, proud to celebrate a woman who knows her worth." I smiled, dropped the phone back down, and stretched. For the first time in weeks, I had no meetings, no obligations. Just one thing on my to-do list: breathe. But peace rarely lasts when there's unfinished family business. By noon, the knock came. I opened the front door to find Tiffany standing there. Her face was puffy like she hadn't slept. Her eyes dropped immediately to the floor. "Can we talk?" she asked. I stepped aside without saying a word. She walked in slowly, like someone entering a church they hadn't been to in years. She sat at the edge of the same couch she'd once claimed like a throne. I remained standing. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she broke the silence. "I didn't know it was your housewarming," she said softly. "Not at first, I swear." I said nothing, but when I found out, I didn't stop it either. There it was. The honesty I'd waited 18 years to hear. "I let Mom take over," she continued. She was so excited. She kept saying this would bring the family together, that it would help heal things. I let out a short breath. "Did you believe that?" "No," she admitted, voice shaking. I just didn't want to be the one she was disappointed in for once." I sat down slowly, not beside her, but angled across. "Tiff," I said carefully. "Get that. More than you probably realize. But you need to understand this wasn't just about a party." She nodded. "It was about everything." I gave a quiet nod. "I spent years being the afterthought. Watching you get what I was told I didn't need. And it wasn't your fault. Not all of it. But you benefited from it. And now I've built this life. Brick by brick. Alone. And I'm not going to let it be co-opted because our mother's scared of facing who she really is." Her eyes filled again. "I know. I didn't mean to. I guess I just never knew how far the gap really went between us." "That's because you never looked," I said, not unkindly. A silence settled again. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I nodded once. "Thanks for saying that." And I meant it. But I didn't offer a hug. I didn't offer coffee or comfort. I wasn't here to make her feel better about what had been done. I was here to finally be honest, without softening the truth to preserve her feelings. And Tiffany seemed to understand that. She stood. "If you ever want to meet the baby, or not, I'll respect that." Then she left. And for once, she didn't wait for me to stop her. 2 days later, I got a call from a restricted number. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. It was Gerald. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. His voice was steady. "Selena, I know you're still angry. I know you feel betrayed. Maybe you were. But Donna's not doing well. And whether you like it or not, you're still her daughter." That was it. No apology. No accountability. Just guilt wrapped in a ribbon of fake concern. I deleted the voicemail. Some ties don't deserve mending. That week, I returned to work. My team surprised me with a congratulatory lunch. We laughed over pizza toasted with sparkling cider and shared stories about the wildest boardroom fails we'd ever witnessed. I felt light, free. Daniel, my mentor and the outgoing CEO, called me into his office after. "You've come a long way," he said, nodding toward the view of the city behind him. "Feels like a different life," I admitted. "It is," he said simply. "You made it." I smiled. But then he added something that stuck. "You know I always saw the fight in you. But now I see the peace, too. Don't lose that." I didn't plan to. That weekend, I visited my grandparents in Cambridge. Grandpa was tending to the tomatoes in his backyard. Grandma had just pulled a batch of cornbread out of the oven. It smelled like childhood, the good kind. We sat on the porch, and they didn't ask for updates. They didn't need them. They just let me sit between them, like they used to when I was small. "I want to fund something," I said suddenly. "A scholarship." Grandma raised an eyebrow. "For who?" "For kids like me," I said. "Ones who get erased. Ones who need a different kind of family." They didn't respond right away. But then Grandpa placed his hand over mine. "Then name it after your father." I nodded. That's what I was thinking. By Monday morning, the foundation paperwork was already in progress. The Elias Torres Memorial Fund. Full scholarships for first-generation students from unstable households. No essays, no polished resumes. Just a story, a dream, and a shot. Helping people like me. People who learned too early that love isn't always loud and support isn't always where it's supposed to come from. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't just healing, I was building. The last thread to tie off came unexpectedly. A letter, handwritten, from Donna. "Selena, I'm not going to pretend I did things right. I didn't. I chose comfort over courage more times than I can count. And I hurt you in the process. I know you don't owe me anything. Not time. Not forgiveness. But if one day you want to talk, I'll be here. Mom." No excuses, no performance, just ink and regret. I read it once, then I folded it, placed it in my desk drawer and left it there, not to forget, but to remind myself that closure isn't always about doors swinging shut. Sometimes it's about deciding who you'll open them for and who you never will again. It's funny how fast the world changes when you stop waiting for people to hand you space and start carving it out yourself. The Elias Torres Memorial Fund officially launched 3 months after the Lake House party. It started with a soft press release on our company blog, then a write-up in Business Journal Weekly, then a spot on a financial podcast hosted by a woman I'd admired since college. We talked about legacy equity and building support for the overlooked. But what hit hardest was the message I got later that night. It was from a young woman in Kansas City, 17, applied to the fund the minute the site went live. "I read your story. Your dad sounds like mine. Mine passed away when I was 8. I'm going to be the first to graduate high school. Thank you for seeing girls like me. We're not invisible anymore." I sat there in silence. That message, those words meant more than any executive award or LinkedIn endorsement ever could. That was the moment I knew I didn't just survive my past. I had turned it into something permanent. The lake house evolved with me. Gone were the baby shower decorations, the borrowed pastels, the performance of family. In their place, clean, quiet beauty. Bookshelves filled with titles I'd loved since childhood. A worn armchair I found at a vintage market, nearly identical to the one my dad used to read in. Plants in every corner. Sunlight pouring across a dark wood floor. And in the center of the entryway, a framed photo of me with my father and grandparents, one of the only ones we ever took. I had braces, and he had a goofy smile. We were holding hands. Next to it, the Elias Fund mission statement printed and mounted in gold. I didn't put those up for visitors. I put them up for me. Because every time I came home, I wanted to remember the girl who felt forgotten. and the woman who chose not to stay that way. The first time I saw Gerald again was accidental. A networking mixer in downtown Boston, hosted by a regional tech alliance. I was speaking on a panel. He wasn't, but he was there posted up by the Shrimp Tower, chatting with a couple of mid-tier VPs like he was still relevant. He saw me before I saw him and froze. I almost walked right by him, almost, but I turned. "Gerald," I said smoothly. He blinked. "Selena." It hung in the air like something sour. "You look busy," he said finally. "I am," I replied. He nodded, tried to smile. "I heard about the foundation." "Good for you." "Thanks," I said. "Oh, and congratulations. I heard your company adopted Aurora last quarter." His face twitched. "Aurora. My system, my name on the patent." I leaned in slightly. Funny how that works. He didn't respond, but I didn't need him to. That moment wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity, and he saw it in my eyes. I walked away. Back at the office, Daniel announced his official retirement date. He brought me into his office with that calm smile of his, the kind that said he already knew what I was about to say. "You're ready," he said. More than ready. It wasn't a ceremonial gesture. It was real. A week later, I was named CEO of Dataflow Analytics. Not the youngest ever, but the first Latina CEO in the company's history. And the first one who built the system that made it all possible. The press was flattering. The internal memo from the board was stiff and formal. But the message I got from my grandparents made me cry. Your dad would be dancing in the kitchen right now. So we danced for him. Love, Grandma Rosa. I reread it a dozen times, not for validation, but for grounding. Because every time something good happens, part of me still checks for the catch. Still wonders if someone will step in and say, "Wait, this wasn't meant for you," but no one did, because this time it was meant for me. Tiffany sent me a gift after the promotion announcement, a tiny pair of baby shoes and a shadow box with a note inside, for your office, to remind you how far we both walked. I'm still learning, but I'm grateful for what you taught me by example. I didn't know how to feel at first, but I kept it. It sits quietly on a shelf behind my desk, not for display. Just as a quiet reminder cycles can be broken, even if it takes time. We've texted a few times since. Nothing deep, but the wall has cracks now. And maybe that's all it needs. I haven't heard much from Donna. One short email. I saw the Forbes piece. "You looked beautiful. I hope you're Aida. I hope you're happy." No guilt, no manipulation, just words, I replied. "I am." I didn't say more. I didn't need to. One Saturday, I took a drive back to the town where I grew up. I didn't stop at the old house. I had no reason to. But I did stop at the public library, where I used to do my homework, where I hid when home got too loud, or too cold, or too painful. It looked smaller now. The tables worn, the paint faded, but the quiet still perfect. I sat in the corner, opened my laptop, and started sketching out a plan to sponsor that library with the foundation. Books, Wi-Fi, scholarships, safe hours. A quiet place for the next girl who needs somewhere to breathe. That's what legacy is to me now. Not just what you build, but what you leave behind for people you'll never meet. As the year wrapped, I hosted a small winter gathering at the lake house. Just 20 people. No theme, no balloons, no staged family moments. Just a fire, good food, laughter, and space to be real. Grandma Rosa brought her herb tea. Grandpa Warren taught my godson how to play checkers. Zaria danced in the kitchen, humming along to old-school R&B. I looked around the room and realized something simple but profound. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't a performance. This was a life. One I chose, one I fought for, one I built. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was standing on the outside looking in. I was home. Winter passed slowly at the lake house. There was something beautiful about the stillness, snow resting on the pine trees, like frosting the surface of the water frozen over in glassy silence. I'd never lived anywhere that made time feel optional. Here I didn't have to perform, didn't have to prove. I just was. In February, the Elias Torres Memorial Fund awarded its first round of full-ride scholarships. 20 students, each with a story that felt painfully familiar. A girl from Nevada whose family called her too bookish. A boy from Mississippi whose parents told him college was a waste. A trans student from Florida who'd been kicked out of her home for applying to art school. They weren't just applicants, they were mirrors. And each time we sent out the acceptance letters, I felt something loosen inside me. This was my father's legacy. His name now existed in the same sentence as hope, the same way I had once whispered it in the dark, searching for a reason to keep going. One crisp afternoon, I was sitting in my office, the sun casting shadows across the floor when Tiffany called. I hesitated. Then answered. Her voice was soft. "Hey, I was wondering, do you want to come by next weekend? Just no pressure. Marcus is making chili. Jules is teething. It's chaos. But you'd be welcome. Jules." Her son. My nephew. There was a pause on my end. And then I surprised myself. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, I think I will." When I arrived, the place was warm and cluttered in the best way. Toys on the floor, music playing from a speaker in the kitchen, the scent of cumin and tomato, and something slightly burned. It didn't feel like a stage. It felt real. Tiffany looked nervous, but I smiled to ease the tension. "You still suck at playlists," I teased, nodding toward the speakers. She laughed, relieved. "Old habits." I met Julian. Held him. He had big brown eyes and a head full of curls. He stared at me like I was both stranger and storybook at once. Something shifted in that moment. I didn't forget the past, but I also didn't carry it into that room like armor. Instead, I handed him his stuffed giraffe, and for once, we just existed. That spring, I gave a talk at MIT, my alma mater. A full-circle moment. The auditorium was packed with students, faculty, and alumni. I spoke about resilience, building systems that serve people, not just profit. Making noise when you've been taught to shrink. But it wasn't until the Q&A that someone asked the question that stayed with me. If you could go back, would you change anything? I paused. The honest answer, I wouldn't. Because for every heartbreak, every exclusion, every single, "you're too much" or "not enough," I'd gained something I couldn't have gotten any other way. Clarity, boundaries, power, and most importantly, self-worth that no longer depended on anyone's permission. So I told them the truth. No, I said. I wouldn't change it. Not because it was easy, but because it made me someone I actually like. I still get letters from my mother. Not often. Once every few months. Short ones. Updates about her garden. A recipe she thinks I might like. Sometimes she signs them Mom. Other times, just Donna. I don't always reply, but I read every word, and I think she knows that's enough. There's no reunion on the horizon. No fairy tale fix. But there's no hatred either. Just distance and peace. One rainy Sunday in May, I walked down to the lake with a journal and a cup of coffee. I sat on the old wooden dock legs crossed beneath me and opened to a blank page. I didn't write about work, or family, or the foundation. I wrote about who I was before anyone tried to define me. That girl with the chipped glasses and library finds. The one who taped her father's letter to the inside of her locker door. The one who stayed quiet at dinner so she wouldn't get labeled dramatic. The one who went to Princeton anyway. And as I wrote, something unexpected happened. I forgave her, not for being small, but for believing she had to be. I didn't get revenge. That's not what this was. I got clarity. Boundaries. Joy. I stopped arguing with people committed to misunderstanding me, and instead I built a life so solid, so loud, in its quiet confidence, that no one had to understand it. They just had to watch it happen. They say you're supposed to close chapters before you open new ones. I disagree. Some chapters write themselves into the spine of who you are. You don't close them. You carry them forward. But you carry them differently, not like weight, like wisdom. My dad used to tell me, Selena, the loudest room isn't always the most important one. Back then I thought it was about school assemblies or noisy meetings, but now I get it. It was about family dinners where love had conditions. It was about boardrooms filled with people who looked past me. It was about voices that shouted over mine to protect fragile egos. And it was about learning to stop yelling back and start building somewhere quieter, smarter, stronger, like this. Today in the lake house I bought with my own name, I wake up to soft light and the sound of trees whispering. I play chess with my grandfather on weekends. My grandmother teaches me which herbs help with stress. Spoiler, it's all of them apparently. Tiffany and I are learning to talk about the present, not rewrite the past. Julian's first steps were captured on video. She sent it to me before she sent it to anyone else. And me, I'm not waiting for recognition, or applause, or another invitation that might never come. I'm just living, loudly, quietly, freely, because this is the story I no longer have to explain. Story 2. I adore you, Vanessa. I do. However, you're not exactly outstanding. It would be better, in my opinion, if you skipped this year's Christmas celebration. My own parents telling me my kids weren't welcome in their house was something I never thought would ever happen. And yet there I was, standing in my kitchen, looking incredulously at my phone. Eleanor's voice was particularly light as she talked, and Christmas was just a few weeks away. We must discuss this year's Christmas celebration, honey. For a minute, my heart warmed up. Despite all of the animosity that had developed between us over time, I still missed these customs from my family. Despite the disconnect that had developed, my children Zoe and Owen loved their grandparents. Mom. Of course. What is the strategy? I inquired, already imagining the aroma of cinnamon pine and the coziness of a family get-together filling their home. There was a moment of silence, just long enough to make me shiver. Well, Eleanor cleared her throat and went on. We're taking a somewhat different approach this year. It's going to be more informative and customized to the twins' requirements. I scowled. Oh, are you making accommodations for the kids? A second pause, then more tentatively. No. I don't have a cold or anything twisted in my stomach. What are you saying? Eleanor sighed, as though she were the one being placed in an awkward situation. This year, how about we celebrate Christmas apart, as you're not an adult role model? Your kids, too. I held on to the counter's edge. Only us, then. How are Ethan and his family doing? What about Ethan? My older brother, the youngster with the golden hue, the person who in my parents' view could do no wrong, even when he did. Eleanor paused. I realized then that Ethan and Audrey would be arriving with the twins. She acknowledged. However, Vanessa, you are aware of how well-behaved Jordan and Jackson are. Simply said, they are more elegant and silent. Having them at the table makes things simpler. I felt the fire rush through me. The floor seemed to have been ripped out from beneath me as if I had been smacked. They're only kids. My voice was strained as I spoke. Owen is 4, and Zoe is 7. They are energetic, of course, but they also adore you and are nice. With a clipped tone, Eleanor responded, We're just trying to have a meaningful Christmas. She was obviously annoyed that I wasn't simply accepting this. Vanessa, it's not personal, not intimate. I gritted my teeth and swallowed the acerbic remarks that threatened to escape. It was more than Christmas. It was the way they constantly put Ethan's twins on a pedestal and treated my kids like an afterthought. The way they attended their piano recitals, but did not attend Zoe's dancing performance. And how Ethan's children's Christmas presents were consistently a bit more costly. They weren't even concealing it anymore. This is unbelievable. My heart hurting from betrayal, I murmured. In reality, you're telling me that while Ethan's children are welcome, mine are not. Oh, Vanessa, Avoid being theatrical. Eleanor let out a sigh. There is just one party. Let's get together again. I nearly chuckled at the ridiculousness. Not the two young souls I loved most in the world, but they wanted me there. I took a deep breath. No, Mother. I won't see you again if I'm not invited to this party. We were silent for a long time. Then, as though I were being irrational, Eleanor let out a quick exhale. Make yourself comfortable. She abruptly ended the call. My breath was erratic as I stood there looking at the phone. In the other room, I could hear my children laughing as they constructed a pillow fort, utterly oblivious to the fact that their beloved grandparents had just rejected them, as though they were flawed. I inhaled deeply as rage churned in my stomach. I had devoted my entire life to attempting to get my parents' favor. But at what price? And what sort of mother would I be if I let them to get away with this and kept up my relationship with them? No. I had stopped doing this. Their decision had been made. It was my turn to make my now, and sooner rather than later, they would regret it. Long after the call was over, Eleanor's remarks continued to have an impact. With my phone still firmly grasped in my fingers, I stood in my kitchen, the soft hum of the refrigerator filling the stillness. My heart thumping with a mix of despair and rage, my fingers shaking as I put it down. Although I had always known that my parents preferred Ethan, I had persuaded myself that it wasn't as terrible as it appeared, and that they actually loved each of us equally. However, they had torn away all semblance of justice tonight. They no longer even made an effort to conceal it. They were more devoted to his kids. From the living room came a spontaneous, unfettered, innocent laugh. Zoe and Owen were still playing in their pillow fort as I turned around, oblivious to the rejection that had just occurred. My chest constricted. They were worthy of better. I forced a grin as I entered the living room and straightened my shoulders. Okay, both of you. My voice was more steady than I felt as I spoke. Are you all set for a night of movies? Owen's eyes glowed with pleasure as he instantly became alert. Is it possible for us to observe the talking dog? I took him into my arms and felt his warm, small body against mine while caressing his silky hair. We certainly can, friend. However, my fury would not go away as we nestled up on the couch. In the hopes that if I did everything correctly, my parents would eventually see me as being on par with Ethan. I had spent years attempting to blend in and following their rules. However, it had never been sufficient, and I had given up. My brother Ethan texted me when I woke up the next morning. You're destroying Christmas, Mom remarked. Why must you make things so dramatic all the time? As I gazed at the TV, I felt my pulse speed and my jaw clench. She had already raced to him, of course. She stated your twins are invited, but she didn't invite us. After appearing, the typing bubbles ceased. It took a minute before he answered. All she wants is an educational setting. Vanessa, your children aren't exactly role models, as you are aware. In some ways, role models like my kids were lacking, as if they should be corrected rather than praised. Something broke inside of me. Ethan, have a wonderful Christmas. I will not be present. Before he could reply, I switched off my phone. Neither my kids nor I were welcome at their table. All right, their universe wouldn't include me at all, and they were going to discover the true meaning of it. I had been the one they could always count on, to assist them out when they needed it for years. My parents phoned me when their Wi-Fi stopped working, and they wanted someone to come get their groceries. When they needed assistance planning a family celebration, I was the one who drove over to solve it. I was the one stranded running errands and making calls. Ethan, too. He had the opportunity to be the golden child, getting all the benefits while doing the very least. However, they would no longer be able to take advantage of me if I were not a member of their favored family. Eleanor gave me another call a week before Christmas. I considered not answering, but ultimately, with my heart pounding, I put the phone to my ear. "Hello, Vanessa," she murmured in a wary tone. "I simply wanted to say hello. I sincerely hope you'll change your mind, even though I know you were unhappy. Nathan and you would be very welcome. We would want to stay in touch with you." As I inhaled deeply, I could feel my rage rising. What I stated was true. "Mom, I won't be accepted in the future if I'm not accepted at Christmas." She let out a deep sigh, as though I were wearing her out. Why you're being so obstinate is beyond me. There is just one party. The twins are very important to us, as you are aware. And there it was. The last agonizing reminder that she would never be satisfied with my two little beings, the people I loved most in the world. I tightened my jaw. "Mom, you've stated our position rather clearly. Vanessa, I promise not to disturb you again. Don't act this way." Before she could finish, I hung up. And I didn't weep this time. When Walter phoned me that weekend to assist him with setting up his new TV, I started simple. The call was sent to voicemail by me. I received a text from Eleanor asking if I could come get her prescription. I didn't read it. I had been at their mercy for years. Always dependable and always accessible. However, it is no longer the case, and they quickly became aware of it. I had missed 12 calls and disregarded 6 SMS by the time Christmas preparations were well underway. Then, during the week before Christmas, I received a message from Ethan one morning. "Your parents are furious that you are neglecting them. Will you really allow this to continue this far?" When they declared we weren't welcome in this time, they had already gone too far. He didn't respond. I switched my phone to quiet and focused on my actual family. Nathan was stringing popcorn garlands with the assistance of Zoe and Owen at the table. They were giddy with laughter and coated in glitter. Our Christmas was this year, and I felt totally at ease for the first time in years. I had no idea, though, that my parents were not finished yet, and I would never forgive their next step. It was quieter than it had been in years on Christmas preparation day. Do not hurry the children into their formal attire. Don't worry about creating the ideal Christmas meal. No nervous checks of the time to make sure we weren't running late. Rather, we were in our own small universe, laughing in our own house. The air was filled with the aroma of hot chocolate and gingerbread. Every time Nathan pretended to wobble, Zoe and Owen squealed with joy as they took turns hanging ornaments, while Nathan raised them to the upper branches. And I felt free for the first time in a long time. Just then, the phone rang and the credit card company sent a usage confirmation email. I opened it carelessly and discovered a significant amount that I was unfamiliar with. I hadn't been reviewing my monthly credit card bills. I found that for a few months, the monthly payment amount had gone up by around $150. It was $500 higher last month, which raised my suspicions. So I looked into it. I discovered that my credit card had been used to purchase a massage chair for my parents' house. I felt a chilling knowledge creep up my back. The reason for this was that I had given my parents temporary access to this credit card. To assist them get through a tough moment, I temporarily enrolled them as authorized users on my account 6 months ago when Walter retired, and they were struggling financially during the changeover period. When their circumstances settled, I had planned to take them out, but I forgot since life became hectic. To be sure, I called my mom. "Could you please explain my credit card?" Eleanor laughed. "Oh, Vanessa, stop being so dramatic. It's only a card. You make a nice living. What did you think we asked ourselves?" Now my cheeks was flaming with wrath, and my voice was shaking. "Did you just intend to continue spending my money? You didn't think I'd notice? Oh, don't pretend that this is a major betrayal. You were reared by us. Supporting us during our retirement is the very least you can do." I felt like I had been punched, so I drew a quick breath. "Really? You expected me to continue buying your food even after I told you that we weren't good enough to attend Christmas. Can you hear yourself? Eleanor sighed dramatically, and for a long time. This is precisely the reason we dislike having tough talks with you, Vanessa. You overreact all the time. Overreact, I was finished. On one point, you're correct. My voice was dangerously calm as I said. The card was canceled by me. And let me be absolutely clear about one thing now that we are having an honest talk. I will never give you another penny. Never. Eleanor let out a gasp, like though I had given her a smack. Vanessa. Avoid being absurd. I cut her off. Additionally, because we are now conversing, don't anticipate birthday, Christmas, or other gifts. When you indicated that my kids weren't welcome, you made your decision. I'm currently creating my... quiet. Then she replied, "You'll regret this," in a tone harsher than I had ever heard her. She then hung up. I stood there for a while holding the phone so firmly that my fingers hurt. I turned back toward the living room gently after that. Nathan was keeping a close eye on me. "Is everything all right?" I made an effort to grin. "Yes." My voice was more steady than I felt as I spoke. "Only putting out the garbage." He stopped asking questions. The remainder of the day was devoted to our personal Christmas preparations, which included singing songs, creating paper snowflakes, and decorating cookies. And there was no underlying stress for the first time in years. There's no need to tread carefully. I didn't have to pretend to be someone I wasn't. Even though all was quiet, I had a feeling that this was not the end of it. And I was correct, since my parents weren't going to abandon their lucrative source of income. Together with my brother, I also made the decision to cease making payments on the Toyota auto loan that I had given my parents as a retirement present. Their next action would reveal their true nature. My parents didn't remain silent for very long. My phone rang with an incoming call 3 days after our altercation. Ethan. I considered ignoring it, but my curiosity won out. With a quick exhale, I responded, my heart racing. "What are you looking for, Vanessa? What the devil?" He skipped the politeness and snapped. "You chopped them off," Mom said, when she called me in tears. "What's wrong with you?" I squeezed the bridge of my nose and closed my eyes. "Did she also let you know that they had been using my credit card without my consent for several months?" A pause. "She did mention that you were assisting them with their retirement, though." "Assisting them?" I laughed without amusement, my voice trembling with rage. "They have amassed thousands of dollars on my account without my consent, Ethan. And they treat my children as though they are flawed. Let's pretend that I'm the villain here, though." He let out a sigh, obviously struggling to contain his annoyance. "I understand your anger, but cutting them off entirely is unacceptable. That is excessive. Are you talking about how we weren't allowed to celebrate Christmas at all?" I sprang back, my cheeks getting heated. "All they want was an educational setting. Your children aren't exactly role models, according to Mom." I squeezed the phone until my knuckles were white. "Oh, I understand. My children aren't worthy of their priceless table, but they can use my money. You understand?" He let out a moan. "This is being twisted by you." "No, Ethan. At last I'm recognizing it for what it is." After a lengthy silence, he said in a calculated tone, "Let's see if we can figure something out. What if you continued to support them by making modest donations such as to the twins' education fund? In this manner, a misunderstanding won't cause anyone to suffer." I felt a chilly chuckle rise in my throat. "Let me clarify. They genuinely told me they loved your children more than mine. Therefore, you want me to keep giving them money." "That wasn't how they meant it," he complained. It was said. "Ethan." For that, he had no answer. A little later, his voice became rigid. "All right, you are free to be selfish if you so want. However, don't count on your parents to pardon you anytime soon." I shook my head and grinned. "I will live." I hung up before he had a chance to argue. for the upcoming weeks. My parents engaged in the practice of silent treatment. No texts, no calls. They were probably hoping that I would give in, crawl back, and beg for their favor, as I always had. They were unaware, however, that I no longer needed it for the first time in my life. And they executed one more desperate prank, precisely when I thought they had finally given up. When the letter arrived, it was the week before Christmas. In the mailbox, Nathan discovered it. He read the sender's name with a furrowed brow. "It comes from your folks." My gut tensed up as soon as I nodded. "Oh, wonderful. I'll guess. Is it guilt, deceit, or outright gaslighting?" He grinned. "How about we learn?" My hands shaking a little. I grabbed the package and ripped it open. The official legal paper was within. As I read the lines, my breath caught. They were requesting payment for years of investment in their education, as well as emotional and financial assistance. I chuckled incredulously. "You must be joking with me." Nathan accepted the letter, swiftly scanning it. "They claim you owe them for raising you and for all the money they spent on your education and general well-being." His jaw clenched as he looked up. "Are they really attempting to charge you for your own upbringing?" It seems that they were. They had also included specific expenses for items like food, clothing, school supplies, college tuition, and childhood medical bills. Additionally, a final total of $78. $42 appears at the bottom of the page. I felt like I had been smacked, so I blinked. Do they really believe that I will pay them about $80,000? Nathan snorted. They must be in a horrible situation. I let out a deep sigh, my rage raging like a forest fire. It had nothing to do with money. This was in charge. One last desperate effort to yank me back into their clutches. I turned to face Nathan. "I've already decided. I believe it's time for me to visit them." I traveled to my parents' place the following day. I knocked, holding the letter in my hands, and Eleanor's expression hardened instantly as she answered the door. "Oh, you're here now." The bait didn't work on me. I displayed the letter. "Did you really think this would work?" She crossed her arms. "It's just," I gave a harsh chuckle. You demand free money from me for the rest of your life, yet you want to tax me for being your child." Alter showed up at the doorway looking pleased. "Vanessa, we gave up a lot for you. You're leaving us now too." I shook my head and glanced at them. "No, Father. When you made it obvious that my children weren't good enough, you left me. When you took from me and lied. When you assign a value to me." Eleanor made a small line with her lips. "I suppose we'll need to hire attorneys if you refuse to pay." Unfazed. I looked her in the eye, my heart racing with self-assurance. "Proceed." She blinked. "What?" I folded my arms. "Bring me to court. If you are suing your own daughter for costs that occurred 20 years ago, try to clarify your case to the judge. Take a look at it." Quiet. They appeared uncertain for the first time. Walter cleared his throat. "We simply assumed you would want to put things right." I chuckled. "Yes, I am now putting things right." Their eyes widened in surprise as I tore the letter in two. "As your personal ATM." "I'm done," Eleanor let out a gasp. "You're a little ungrateful." I pivoted on my heel. "Happy Christmas." For the first time in my life, I felt lighter as I walked back to my car and yelled over my shoulder. I came to a realization while I was driving away. The money didn't bother them. They were angry because for the first time in my life, I was in charge, and I wasn't relinquishing it. I assumed my folks would eventually back off when I ripped up their absurd demand for money, that perhaps just possibly they would sit in the ruins of their own conceit and see how far they had driven me. They remain the same though, and people enjoy them. They simply become worse. It began modestly. 2 days before Christmas, Eleanor texted, "This is absurd, Vanessa. We are related. You don't abandon your family because of a pointless quarrel." I chose to ignore it, experiencing an odd mixture of resolution and grief. Another message the following day. "We pardon you. We'll forget this ever occurred if you join us for Christmas dinner." It nearly made me chuckle. They pardon me. Then one from Ethan a couple of hours later. "They are in excruciating pain. Vanessa only expressed regret so that we may proceed." I gave an eye roll. Of course, I was the one who had done something wrong in his universe. I responded by typing it out. I'm dragging my fingertips across the screen. It's funny. When they were robbing me, they weren't in pain. Or when I was informed that my children were not welcome. They'll live, I believe. I disabled his number after hitting send. Then came Christmas Eve. Zoe and Owen were too thrilled to sleep and were dancing around the living room in their pajamas as Nathan and I were putting up the tree. It was flawless. The doorbell then rang. Nathan and I looked at each other. "No," he whispered. Reaching the entrance, I looked through the crowd. Eleanor and Walter indeed. I was about to ignore them when I noticed that they were holding a huge, exquisitely wrapped box. I opened the door with a sigh. "What are you looking for?" Eleanor's expression brightened with artificial joy. "Happy Christmas, my love." Walter presented the instructional toys to the children. I crossed my arms. "Thank you, but no." Eleanor smiled hesitantly. "Vanessa, avoid being obstinate. Let's not let this destroy Christmas. Christmas is already spoiled by you." I retorted, my voice shaking with rage. "Remember when you informed me that my kids weren't suitable for your table?" Her mouth parted, then shut again. Walter let out a sigh. "Vanessa, hurry up. Let's simply reunite as a family." I was so tired that I just gazed at them. "Being a family is not what you desire." Silently, I said, "Do you want me to resume my usefulness?" All I needed to know was that they were silent. I gave a headshake. "Go with your gift." Eleanor's face became stern. "Vanessa, avoid becoming self-centered. Consider the kids." I gave a chilly grin. "The children are on my mind. You are no longer a part of their life for just that reason." Walter's mouth clenched. "Are you serious about doing this?" I let out a breath. I did it already. I then slammed the door in their faces. My determination is stronger than ever, yet my heart is pounding. We had the most wonderful Christmas ever that night. Owen and Zoe barged in on them. The house echoed with their laughing. Before kids slept off on the couch, we watched Christmas movies, played board games, and sipped hot chocolate. Additionally, it was the first time in my life I wasn't attempting to prove myself at Christmas. We were the focus. Actual family. Selected family. The sort that has no conditions attached. The type that doesn't require you to earn affection. The sort that genuinely wants to adore you. Not because they anticipate receiving something in exchange. That seemed to be the end of it. That my parents would finally recognize that I was done after I was cut off, humiliated financially at Christmas, and sent away at my own door. However, I didn't realize how much power they believed they still had over me. They did something on New Year's Eve that I didn't anticipate. The idea behind New Year's Eve was to start over, to move on from the past and into a brighter future. I told myself that when I was arranging the snack table. Our house is filled with music and laughter. Running around in their tiny party hats, Zoe and Owen were giddy with anticipation. The clock is ticking away till midnight. With a kind smile on his face, Nathan began serving us champagne. It was our party, our night. Then there was a knock. My stomach dropped as I froze. Nathan gave me a quick look. "Do you believe I knew already?" I approached the door, inhaled deeply, and pushed it open. And there they were. Walter, Ethan, Audrey, Ethan's wife, and Eleanor. An ambush occurred. I folded my arms. What are you looking for? As always, Eleanor's grin seemed forced and syrupy, as if she were demanding something. All we want to do is chat. Thank you, but no. With my heart thumping against my ribs, I responded firmly. Walter let out a sigh. Enough, Vanessa. Your point has been made. Let's take care of this now before it gets out of hand. My eyes narrowed too much. Even so, what does that mean? Eleanor and Ethan looked at each other. We just do not want the growth of the children to be impacted by this. Her tone made my skin crawl for some reason. What are you discussing? Ethan took a step forward. His arms were folded across his chest as if he had been mistreated. A lawyer has been speaking with Mom and Dad. I felt a chill of fear go over me. An attorney. Slowly, I repeated. Eleanor gave a nod. Her eyes shone with pure compassion. Vanessa, we're just concerned. Due to a careless mistake, you have severed your children's ties to their biological family. It is unfair to their academic progress. My heart was racing in my throat. What are you attempting to express? Walter cleared his throat. For a time, we have been investigating the rights of grandparents. The only sound I could hear was the pounding of blood in my ears. Then I burst out laughing. It wasn't a little laugh. It was harsh, noisy, and insane. They believed that they could lawfully re-enter my life, into the lives of my children. Ethan's expression contorted. Why is it so funny? My eyes were wiped. Oh, are you serious? Do you believe that a court will consider this case and rule in your favor? Eleanor's mouth pushed shut. We haven't done anything improper. Nothing is wrong. I said it again, taking a step forward as my veins burned. I was stolen from by you. You acted as though my children were flawed. And now that I've finally interrupted you, do you believe that you can extort your way back? Walter grew gloomy. Vanessa, you don't want to do this. I smiled back at his scowl. Yes, but I do. I took out my phone and raised it. I want you to consider what you're going to do very carefully, I said in a chilly tone. Because I have all of the voicemails, texts, and requests for money. And I'll bury you if you try this, I swear. Audrey let out a gasp. Come on, Vanessa. No. I yelled, staring at my parents. Because you used my credit card fraudulently, I'm bringing a legal complaint against you. For the sake of my family, I will demand restitution and a restraining order against you. Eleanor's face then contorted in rage. You are acting irrationally. I grinned. No, Mother, I'm being intelligent at last. I retreated inside my home and seized the door. Cheers to the new year, I said in a kind manner. I slammed the door in their faces after that. I had just dropped my kids off at school when the phone rang. Thanks to the court restraining order, another year had gone by. I continued to live physically apart from my parents. However, I had a peaceful existence. The screen of my cell phone displayed an unknown number. I hesitated for a second before responding. Hello, Vanessa. It was Ethan's voice, but it sounded weak and exhausted rather than his typical patronizing tone. Have you got time to chat? You got my number. But how I inquired. Both of you are covered by the restraining order. He said, this is a friend's phone. I have no intention of breaking the edict. All I wanted to do was chat. I let out a sigh. Ethan, what do you want? I felt compelled to inform you. He was trembling as he said, everything is gone. What are you discussing? Two things, the automobile and the house. Everything. He spoke more softly. Due to your lawsuit, I responded. I almost sued you for using my card fraudulently. The repercussions are your own. Acting. He chuckled bitterly. We were accused with felony credit card fraud by the prosecution. The penalty was severe. I kept quiet. The evidence from my civil complaint must have evolved into a criminal case, even though I hadn't filed any criminal charges. What is the amount in the end? I requested more than $250,000 in penalties and compensation. Ethan replied. The home of Mom and Dad was foreclosed. They currently reside in an inexpensive apartment. I am in a similar situation. Audrey and the twins. What about them? His voice became weaker yet. Audrey returned to her parents' house with the twins. We are now going through a divorce. Since you now have a criminal record, she won't allow me visit the twins. I assume I did. Yeah, he responded glumly. I also lost my job. Despite my current employment as a night security guard, I am still unable to make the reparation payments. You're telling me this, but why I inquired? Would you like my pity? You are the ones who brought about this circumstance. I am aware that he concurred. The unexpected answer took me by surprise. How are our parents doing? Do they still admit their actions? There was stillness for a minute before Jesus responded to their anguish. On a friend's couch, Mom is dozing off. Restitution is covered by the majority of their pension. Dad works as a security guard part-time, although it's challenging for him at his age. Please, he said. Please. Are you unable to take action? However, I adamantly declined. I hung up and looked out the window. I had long detested them. But after learning what they had lost, my rage somewhat subsided. They had to deal with the fallout from their decisions, and I would have to live with mine. The decision to prioritize my kids and myself. And it felt like freedom for the first time in my life. Their expectations are no longer a burden. The need to win their approval. Lost. The never-ending cycle of deception and guilt is over. I was sitting on the porch observing Zoe and Owen as they chased bubbles in the yard on a bright spring afternoon months later. Nathan sat next to me and gave me a lemonade. He said, "It's been quiet." I gave a nod. "Yes, it feels fantastic." He grinned. "Are they important to you?" As I took a sip of my beverage, I observed my children laughing as the bubbles burst. Pure excitement filled up their faces. The spring air brought their laughing. I claimed it didn't matter since I had already won. My children were my true family, and I would never again allow anyone to make them feel unwelcome.